All right, let's go ahead and get started. How's everybody doing today? Cool. I'm Chad Magendanz. I'm lead program manager on the Windows User Experience team, and I have the coolest job in the world because I get to show you a whole bunch of stuff you can't sell yet. How many people out there have seen Whistler? Oh, excellent. Quite a few of you. Well, I'm going to do a quick overview of Whistler, and I'm going to drill down on some of the new Whistler features in the shell and the user interface as a whole that'll appeal to the new customers that we're targeting, which is more in the consumer sector. First of all, I want to give you a quick overview as to what our design vision was going into this product. Who are we targeting? Well, we're looking at the top ISVs and IHVs and OEMs. We're focusing on the consumer sector. The intent here is to drive migration from the Win9X code base over to the NT code base. Because Whistler is the first release of NT focused on the consumer. And it's a big deal for us because we're finally getting over into one code base. We get the power and the stability of NT, and we get all the consumer features that we've had in our Win9X line up to and including Millennium Edition and then beyond that. We're not as much targeting the .coms, hosted applications, mega services, and enterprises. Those we targeted very well and executed very well on for Windows 2000. We got them covered very, very well. We're going to keep those in maintenance mode while we focus in on the consumer sector. So what are our design goals? Well, first, we got to build on NT. This is a core long-term strategy for Microsoft as a whole. This gives us a new consumer user experience, digital media, home networking, gaming, all the support we had in the Win9X code base, greater application and device support than we had with Windows 2000, and Windows Millennium Edition feature parity. Increasing customer satisfaction. We're resolving these deployment obstacles that we've had with Windows 2000. And then we're making the process of upgrading and migrating from Win 2000 and Windows Millennium Edition easier and simpler for novice users. Of course, we're still focusing on performance, reliability, and we're trying to keep our cost of management and support down as well. So, the Internet enables your business. Okay? This is still very core to our strategy. Something we covered very well in Windows 2000. And reliability, also a core strength of Windows NT. Driver quality, we're solving DLL help situations where you have DLLs being upgraded on the fly without people being aware of them. They break apps. Well, we've got a solution for that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Manageability, we've made some WMI improvements. It's a consumer version, so we've got a new consumer user experience, and I'll spend a lot of time talking about that. And we've got a lot of new device support. So we've also got a new SKU. Not only does this replace the entire line of Windows 2000, but we've added a new SKU for the home user that's intended to replace the Win9X SKU. The personal SKU is for consumers. It's got a new consumer experience. It's got the digital media that you had with Windows Millennium Edition, home networking support, gaming support, includes the latest version of DirectX, and we've got parity for all the Windows Millennium features. However, it doesn't have all the features of Professional. Personal is designed for the home user. Professional is designed for a business user, a business user at work or at home, or even a high-power personal user working at home. The features that are unique to Professional are the management features, telemeter, mirror, policy, roaming, business networking. You can't actually log into a domain with the Personal Edition. And some of the security, like the encrypted file system, ACLs, I mean, ACLs are still there, but they're not exposed as much in the Personal Edition. Some of the high-end features, like your internet servers, personal terminal server, multi-proc support. You can only run on one processor, and multiple monitor support. And then 64-bit. We've got a new, all of these will be, or almost all of these SKUs will be available in 64-bit editions, but not the personal SKU. So what's our upgrade strategy? You'll be able to upgrade from retail, personal, and professional from just about anything. But it isn't a service pack upgrade. This is a whole new release of the operating system. It's a major update release. And there are no downgrades. So if you had Windows 2000 Professional, you can't downgrade to Windows Whistler Personal. That would be just taking away features, and we don't want to do that. And we need your help to make the upgrade process as simple as possible. Now, if we can hold the questions at the end, I'm going to have a Q&A period at the end. Just hang on to those questions. So what's the whole .NET thing? Well, .NET is still being determined to some extent, so I'm just going to cover the stuff we know. You know all about the .NET platform. What does it mean to Whistler? Well, 1.0 implementation for Whistler is the identity, notification, software delivery, storage, and the XML protocol itself. Support for that in the client. And what it really means is a new user-friendly logon, personalization, which is passport integration, and navigation. And I'll show you those in a second. What's the schedule? RTMing in Q2 2001. The intent is to get out there for the holiday season, which means we have to be preloaded in OEMs around May, June timeframe. That's pretty aggressive. This is a date-driven release, and we're going to be hard-pressed to make that date. But unlike the Windows 2000 release, NT5, we haven't made a lot of core architectural changes. So if we get to the point where we're falling behind schedule, we'll pull features in order to make our date-driven release. We couldn't do that with NT5 because pulling a feature would destabilize it more than keeping it in. So we've taken a very cautious approach with our new feature work, and we always have this safety net that we can back off if our dates are in jeopardy. It's very critical that we make that Fall 01 launch because we've got to get out to consumers. And in the consumer market, if you don't make holidays, forget it. Just walk away. You're out of business right there. Our big risks, well, yeah, you can probably guess this one, app compatibility. Right now, Windows 2000 does pretty well, but it doesn't run all the apps, particularly in the gaming area, that need to be supported for the consumer sector. And peripheral compatibility is another one. How many people have upgraded to Windows 2000 and found that 3 or 4 devices didn't work? Yeah. We got to fix that. If we don't fix these two problems, we're not even starting to square one. We need to have an improved user experience, and that means that everything you have continues to work. And then consumer excitement. You've got to take some risks to add more features. So we have to move these people from Windows 2000 to Whistler. Now, this will actually be a much better user experience. And so we want to drive as many people as we can right now who are using Win9X to the Win 2000 code base, particularly developers. In-house developers, if they're running on Windows 2000, they're going to have a much easier transition to Whistler. Drivers that work for Windows 2000 will continue to work for Whistler. That's not true from the Win9X code base. So it's very important that you go out there and evangelize people to go out and build for Windows 2000 so that they make the Whistler transition that much easier. So the home, it's changing. All right, we need to ensure that the PC is still very core to our strategy, but we're including more and more devices and more services. Consumer electronics devices, handheld PDAs, digital phones, with wireless, with the Bluetooth stuff, a whole bunch of new remote services are now possible. And the PC is still very core to that. And the PC is a central repository of information. It's the most convenient place to enter all the information about you as a user, and it also talks with the internet services the most effectively of all these devices. So when we went to users, we asked them what problems they're having with their PCs. And I don't think the first thing is going to surprise anyone here in this audience. PCs running under Win9X are way too fragile. They break all the time. They crash. The error messages are confusing. They're not written for consumers. And they're too hard to troubleshoot. You know, how many people out here have actually been helping family members or friends repair their PC? You got to have a guru. It's not simple enough for mom to be able to fix. And that means that guys like us are roped into fixing every single friend's PC problem. And we want to fix that. The other thing is that the PC is still complicated. What made Windows 2000 a fantastic operating system for professionals makes it a crappy operating system for mom. And that's a pretty tough problem to solve, and we're taking it very seriously. The whole OS needs to be more intuitive. Too many steps in a lot of these wizards. Basically what we find in usability tests is we lose them after about 3 pages. So we got to keep these much simpler. The mantra within our group right now is it just works. It's got to be simple. It's got to, we got to reduce the complexity at all levels, and the behavior needs to be more like an appliance. When you turn on a TV, you don't expect to have to sit down in front of a keyboard to get what you wanted. If you look at the calendar on top of your refrigerator, you expect that instant gratification. You point to it, that's the information you need, you'll walk away. Right now, we kind of expect users to be patient enough to sit down in front of a keyboard and a mouse and start typing until they get the information they need. Usually it takes about a minute or two. That's considered acceptable right now. It isn't acceptable for consumer use. Consumers use their computers very differently than a knowledge worker. They want that instant gratification, and sometimes that means we have to throw out what we come to expect about a PC. We have to look at alternate input devices, things like touch screens, voice dictation, voice commands, face recognition, little things. Like, we give out a lot of information that we don't even realize we're giving out. Like, if I walk up to a computer, why isn't it come out of standby for me? Why do I have to sit there and rattle on the keyboard and wait for the screen to warm up? There should be a proximity detector that I walk up and it's just ready to go. It's that kind of thing that we really need to be focusing on for Whistler. And of course, we need to move into digital world. And this is just user expectations. We have to be able to compete with our competitors who are making more and more out of personal video, personal music, and imaging. And we need to make sure that they are well connected so you can share machines in the home, because more and more people are getting more than one PC at home. Finally, the most important thing, for my group at least, is that we've got to generate consumer excitement. And it means a visual refresh. We really haven't updated the user interface of Windows since Windows 95. I mean, we put a little gradient in the title bar, but you know, that's effectively all we've done in 5 years. It's time for that new car smell. Okay? We need to learn a little from the consumer industry. I mean, they have new model cars, every few years. And in between, they kind of do the little Windows 98 thing. But we need a new model. We need something new and exciting. We need to pump people up about Windows because it's been far too long. The end-to-end digital media, we're going to build on what we did for Millennium, but we're going to focus on acquiring, managing, and publishing our results to the web or to CD-ROM. And then we're going to streamline the common tests, the ones that are too complicated right now, the ones that scare novice users away. Mostly those in the area of taskbar management, window management, the start page itself, and we're adding some features to encourage scenarios that we find are more common with consumers, like fast user switching, which I'll get into later. And then we need to design for new hardware. More and more, we're finding that having a great user interface isn't enough. You got to have a great user experience. And the interface, it can be as sexy as all get out. It just doesn't matter if you can't get it to work with the hardware you want. You can't get the drivers installed. You can't get the value-added applications working with the hardware and the OS. Basically, you're unproductive. The user interface isn't enough. And that's one of the reasons why we renamed our group the User Experience Group. We need to be working end-to-end, all the way from the box till ultimately when the user is productive. And we need to consider that entire experience and not just the UI. So let me show you a no-brainer here. Boot experience right now is pretty dull. It comes up, usually it'll have like a post animation that the machine puts up there, and then it drops into text mode, and you look at a whole bunch of text go by. And then you have a blue screen, not that kind of blue screen, hopefully, but the blue background, and a window coming up saying, please wait. Well, we want to improve that experience because it's the first 90 seconds the user is going to see. Hopefully it's going to be like the first 10 seconds the user sees. So we start with a black background. You give your post animation. We keep it black. And this is what you'll actually see in the beta we're releasing in a few weeks. And then from there, it drops immediately into a user-friendly new logon screen. Oh, wait. Didn't mean to hit that again. So let me show you some of the UI changes that we were looking for. And actually, before I do this, I actually want to show you something. I want to show you what we call our attitude piece. This is something that we put together as an inspiration for our design efforts. And it's basically what defines the new design of Whistler. And there's a lot to it. Here we go. Obviously, we have some performance issues to work out. Actually, let me bop in here, and I'm actually going to go back to a slide that I had hidden, which has a link to this. There we go. So this is our design vision. What defines Whistler? And to some extent, it's more of a marketing pitch. You're going to see a lot of allusions to our competitors. We're not afraid to learn from our competitors. But this is what we want Whistler to be. And this is what what Windows is. So that was our inspiration. Now let's see how we do. So let's take a look at some of the existing visuals for Windows. This is basically what we've come to know and love. Okay, Battleship Gray, not terribly exciting, but hey, it works, and it's worked for several years now. Now, we were looking at some designs that were inspired by basically Office 10. I don't know how many of you have seen betas of Office 10, but it's a fairly flat look. It's designed for the professional. The focus is on the content rather than the frames. It's designed for someone who doesn't like to spend a lot of processor power generating eye candy. And to some extent, this works. We've done some things to make sure that the background windows are more muted, that it's more obvious what the foreground window is. We've done some slight gradients on the buttons. This is what we call our professional visual style. It's not terribly exciting, but it's different. From here, I'm going to show you some examples of consumer visual styles that we're playing with. Now, none of these are the final consumer style. And we're not going to release the final consumer style until like RC1, because we have to keep some of it back so we have a good splash for the launch event. We don't want to distract from our Win2K or Windows Millennium sales either. But I'll show you some of the things that we're considering just so you can get an idea what it's like. You'll notice that a lot of these are very inspired by some of the things that Apple is doing with macOS 10. They did raise the design bar on a lot of these things. The design quality, users expect more from their PCs now. And you notice a lot of these things, more subtle gradients, kind of sheens to things, larger controls, but we haven't changed the location of the controls. It's very subtle, and it's designed not to interfere with the productivity of the user. Some of these you'll see, this one was inspired by the new MSN Explorer. And we're trying to reuse designs whenever we can. Here's a early prototype of the user experience with one of these consumer looks. Again, this is not the final appearance, but this is an example of something that we'll be checking in right around the RC1 timeframe. So here's actually a boot sequence that using a more final Windows logo. And so here you can see I've got my user-friendly logon screen. It indicates how many programs are running for the user. And I can actually log in as Jessica here. And I can type my password. Okay, and it drops down. And now we have our new taskbar here. You notice the little sliders here that uncover more of your notification area. You can move it around a little bit more of a tactile feel. It kind of has that metal sheath on plastic. We have a new start menu. And I'll actually show you a lot more about this later, actually working in the product. From here you can go into My Documents. You notice the Documents window is not entirely rectangular. We actually have a little bit of a grab handle here. It encourages people to drag it around a little bit more. Same for dialogues themselves. We were exploring a little bit with how we could better indicate the default button by doing a blue line underneath. Same for the active task. We probably won't do that, but that's basically how far we've gotten. Got me. So let's talk about this visual refresh. What's the intent? Well, we want a cleaner, simple visual style for business users. These are the people who want productivity. They don't want to be wasting a lot of processor cycles. But we want a second, more inviting, more visually compelling style for our consumer Windows people. These are the people who have to have the sexiest machine on the block. And we want to give them what they want. And so you're actually going to be able to choose between either of those two. We've committed to having two new visual styles. Of course, you can always still have the old classic Windows style, so there's really three. But we'll definitely have at least two of these. There may be more released with the Plus pack later on. Yeah, also, one of the major objectives here is that we have a low-cost mechanism for all of our applications out there to sync with these new styles. So applications can inherit these new visual styles that the user selects without having to rewrite their applications. And I'll show you just how easy that is in a second. What are the benefits? Well, we got that new car smell. We have a huge opportunity to provide users with a new feel, a new user experience. It makes it feel sexy and new and exciting to use their PCs. They'll be honed for different types of users. We already mentioned the difference between business and consumer users. But with a Plus pack, we could potentially have people who are just wild and crazy game people who want something totally outlandish. And something on the spectrum there, you feel you fit in, you just select a style that's more you. You can't actually customize the visual style yourself, but you can pick one that's authored to suit you. In most cases, the development cost is minimal. It's usually just a test pass. And the work allows your applications to automatically inherit these new looks as we release them. And they may be released as part of shared component packs after the fact. So we don't even have to time this with a new release of Windows. So what makes this all possible is a theme manager. It's a new set of APIs. Actually, it's building on an old set of APIs. We've always had themes in the operating system. But these provide rendering support for new controls, which is something we haven't done in the past. It also provides a set of APIs to assist the controls in positioning of parts. All the stuff that custom controls may have been doing by hand with direct GDI calls, we provide a layer to abstract them from the rendering and positioning information that may be different depending on what visual style the user selected. So all the current controls that are in COM control and user, they're just going to get this when you tell them to just pick it up. And I'll show you how that happens in a second. If you have custom drawn controls, you may actually have to write directly to this theme manager, and that's why I'm basically telling you guys about it now. So the common controls, we've revved these with Whistler to COM control version 6, and the new controls use the theme manager for rendering. 5.5 is actually still in use in Whistler. And legacy applications, if you don't touch them, they'll still use the old 5.5 controls. That means that you may have some applications using COM control version 5.5 and some applications using COM control 6 at the same time. In the past, you've never been able to run two versions of the same DLL at the same time. But now you can, thanks to a core technology called Fusion inside Whistler that allows us to do side-by-side DLLs. It's also one of the things that contributes to solving the DLL hell problem. Basically, you can write an application now and you can say, I want to use this particular version of the DLL. And you'll get that version, even if newer versions are installed. That means that some newer version of DLL can't break you, or it would be very hard to break you. COM Control 6 obviously won't ship down level because it does require Fusion and it does require the theme manager. So let me actually pop into a demo here. I'm going to keep this running in the background. And I'm going to show you a little of what the UI is like. So I'm going to open up my documents here. And you can see you have a little bit of a new feel for the actual controls. A little bit new mouse over. You see the light blue, and the menus are a little different. If you go into the controls themselves, you see that there's mouse over for the buttons. Subtle stuff. Again, we've got a very conservative style that we've got here, and we're not going to show you the sexy stuff yet because we don't want you to get distracted from Millennium and Windows 2000. But let me show you just how easy it is to select these new styles. So the user can go in here, and before, when you had themes, you still have themes here. So you can have a list of themes, and the Plus pack will populate a huge list of those in there. But in addition to being able to control the metrics and the color and the fonts, we can now control the windows and buttons, basically the visual style. Here I've got just two, but you could actually have more in there. And you select those, and the actual control appearances will change. So let's take an application which hasn't been touched at all. This is actually a version of Outlook Express, which is exactly the same version that shipped with Windows 2000. Haven't changed a thing. Now you'll notice when it pops up, the non-client regions of the windows have been updated with a new visual style. So basically the outside of this, let me reduce this so you can actually see. You've got this new blue area on the outside. And the menus, these are the new visuals for the menus. But the client regions, like this button bar right here, this is still the old visuals, the old comm control visuals. If you actually go in here and look at the options, this is the old heavy tabs and heavy controls. No rollover, no mouse over. So you've got something that isn't going to break you. Your application, if it has custom controls, you don't want to go change all the other controls and make you look like crap without you first having tested it. We want the application vendors to control when they adopt this new look and have a chance to test with it to make sure they look good before they roll it out to all of their customers, whether internally or externally. But how hard is it to actually get it up and running with this new visual style? So we have what we here call a manifest. Manifest is basically an instruction to Fusion that says use this particular version of a DLL. So in this case, it's just an XML tag that says, well, I'm using comm control version 6. That's all it is. And I'm going to take this and put it in the same folder as my Outlook Express executable. Now, when I launch Outlook Express, you'll notice that it has a new rollover characteristic here. And the options dialog here has the new rollover. So basically, we inherited the new look. Now, did we have to recompile? No. In fact, you can use this same manifest file for all your localized versions. You don't even have to change it. You can roll it out with a little installer. You can push it out. If you're an IT manager, you can push it to all your machines running that particular version of the application. In fact, you can customize it to have, let's say you have a new DLL you wanted to roll out, and you only want it to go for some applications and not others. You can actually do that with this manifest. You push it out to the locations where you want to apply for those applications. And basically, it allows you to test with this text file, make sure you look great, and then when you're ready, you just roll it out to all your customers. You still have to do a test pass, though. It's very important that you do that test pass because you could actually break something. Anytime we touch comm control, and we've learned this from the past, anytime we touch comm control, we run the risk of having broken somebody, just because there are a lot of people who use comm control in very mysterious ways. So we do require that test pass. You also need to make sure that if you're using custom controls, that they look good side by side with the new controls. If they don't, then you'll have to go into that custom control and make sure you're using the theme manager APIs to do the rendering. And then you probably will. At a minimum, you should pull out the palette so that you're using the right colors. And then finally, the underlying, we've added more parameter validation for Common Control 6. In the past, when we've updated Common Controls, we've been afraid to do more error checking because we end up breaking people. Usually, 80% of the time, if we kind of cruise along and try to do the right thing, the legacy apps that we're not checking for errors will probably be all right. Well, here, since we're basically forcing a test pass, we decided, okay, this is the chance to do the right thing, and if you have an out-of-range parameter, we'll let you know right then and there so that the applications can deal with it at a more appropriate time. So, got to do that test pass. But, do you need to recompile? Probably not. We expect 90% of the apps to run without modification with the new manifest and inherit the new look, the customized new look. And remember, the user could go and change this. It doesn't necessarily have to be this particular look. But they'll get it on the fly dynamically with the theme manager. So, I have a whole bunch of questions that I always get on this visual refresh stuff. Are these skins? Well, we don't like to use the word skins because when I think of the word skin, I think of like Media Player or Winamp, big octopus-shaped things or big green heads. One of our objectives here is that we didn't want to interfere with the usability or supportability of the platform in the process of doing this. We want to make it sexy and new, but it should still work like it always did. I mean, when you buy a new car, it could be the sexiest car in the world, but the turn signal better work exactly like it did before or else you're screwed. We took the same approach here. The controls are in exactly the same location, which is unlike skins. If you've ever used Media Player, the big green head, I mean, the tools box is the top of his head. It's not on the right-hand side anymore. We don't do that. The themes are applied system-wide. You can't actually have an application-specific theme. And that was intentional. I know we're going to get a lot of pushback from the ISVs who want to have their special visual style. It only runs with AOL or only runs with their app. Well, no, the intent for us is to develop the platform. And we want the platform to have a consistent look and feel. You don't get that by having dozens of different applications out there with wild, wacky UIs. We maintain the design control and the quality bar for themes. We're not planning to make these APIs or the file format public. The theme manager APIs are public, yeah, but that lets you use existing themes. The file formats for these are not going to be public. We're going to maintain design control, and we will basically be holding these very close to our chest. If anything, they'll be released as part of a plus pack. So let's talk a little bit more about other aspects of the visuals for Whistler. We have high-quality icons now, up to 24-bit color depth, 8-bit masks, which means you can have transparencies and anti-aliased edges, up to 128 by 128 pixels in size. They're used very heavily in icon tile and a new thumbnail view, which I'll show you in a second. And we'll be updating the new design guidelines and tools to make it more obvious how to create these new icons. Now, apps and devices will need to author new icons at a minimum so that they look good inside the shell. That's like the minimum bar. Give us some new high-quality icons so we can represent you well inside the shell. It doesn't mean you have to go update all your toolbars and stuff like that to be high resolution. But if you want to look good in the shell, you'll start looking at some of these new icons. Now, we actually author these 96 by 96, which is the new preview size. It's actually the same size that they use for image acquisition cameras, stuff like that. And then we reduce them down. Sometimes we reduce them on the fly. Sometimes we'll actually have lower resolution versions already stored with them. But you can see we're not exactly taking a photorealistic approach, but it's very much a 3D animated appearance using pretty common symbols. And I think everyone will agree these are just much more visually compelling. And it's such a simple little thing to do from a code perspective, too. All right, so how are we reducing complexity in other ways? Common tasks. Need to make them simpler. This is something we get from usability tests. We have lots of data from usability tests, and we just haven't addressed most of these issues, and now we're finally taking the chance to do that. Taskbar improvements. People have a hard time managing multiple windows. They get windows that are lost. They get taskbars that are just cluttered with dozens and dozens of things that have absolutely no meaning because all the text is cut off. We're cleaning up the notification area, the area of the system tray over on the right-hand side. That gets cluttered with all these applications that really don't belong in there. So when you get a machine right off the bat, you tend to have a lot of junk in there, and that confuses users. We're cleaning up the desktop, which also tends to get spammed. So you'll notice a general overall clutter reduction theme here. And we're also improving the start menu, which people have a hard time navigating. So let's talk about the taskbar improvements. Clustering is when you have windows of the same app that are grouped together. So if you open windows in an alternate order between Word documents and Excel documents, it would actually be dispersed all over the place in the taskbar. We actually group them together. We find that this saves users for the second in actually identifying the right window. So we group all the Word documents in a group and all the Excel documents in a group. Grouping, or what we internally call glomming, is it solves the problem when you have a whole bunch of Outlook email messages up and you have the itty-bitty little tiles that just show the little icon and the text is all cut off. This is basically useless. So what we do is we actually glom them together into one and make a pop-up of it. So all the Outlook messages will be accessible from a pop-up, and it lists all the messages right there. I'll show you that in a second. And then we're animating the transitions just to get a little bit more visual feel for what's happening as things are added and removed from the taskbar. So first, let's talk about the notification areas. Someone's head's in the way here, but in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that there's, I'm not picking on Sony, mind you, too. This is just the way my machine came from the manufacturer. And you can see you've got about a dozen little icons in the corner, and God forbid you should know what to do with each of those. And maybe if you knew, you could hover your mouse over it and you might actually get a text description. But the fact is, there are interface guidelines for using the notification area. Nobody follows them, though, because it's just a great launch point for all your applications. And unlike the quick launch bar, it's always been there since Windows 95. So you can pretty much assume that if you spam something to the system tray, it'll be there for everybody, and it just makes a great launch point. It's more eyeballs for your application, and people tend to abuse it that way. So what we're doing is we're reducing clutter by using the same method we use for personalized menus. If you don't use something for a while, it drops off the list. Okay? And unlike the personalized menus, you can actually customize it. Unlike personalized menus, you can actually customize it and you can say, I want this always to be there. I don't care how often I use this. This is my battery indicator. I want it on all the time. Or if you've got something that's just junk, if you actually accidentally click on it, you don't want it to show up, you can actually say, I never want this to show up. And I'll show you how that's done. The other thing is the menus. This, again, same laptop. This was the start menu as it came from the manufacturer. And we have a little arrow that comes right off the bat and says, hey, novice user, come click on the start menu and you know exactly what to do with your new machine. Well, okay, assuming they can navigate this hierarchical menu, which is a horrible assumption. They have awful times with hierarchical menus. What if that is the most important thing for a user to do? It's just not obvious. And you know, we're guilty of this too. I mean, look at the main start menu there. We've got a whole bunch of Office things spammed in there as well. So we're making an effort to try to clean this up and focus the user's attention on the stuff that really matters right out of the box. So let's take a look at the start menu. We have a new start panel. We're still calling it a start menu, but it's basically a panel. It works like the start menu. It's basically the same as the start menu, except it has an area to the left that indicates your most recent applications. And all your special folders, like My Documents, My Pictures, stuff like that, that's along on the right-hand side too, so you can get that one click away. And your user controls, like log off and shut down, those are all there as well as your help support and controls. And it's customizable too. So actually the OEM can customize it as part of the UBI, so the out-of-box experience. It'll open up to it and you'll have all of the things there listed that your OEM wanted to see right off the bat. So it'll be a lot more obvious. Click here and you'll get this, you know. And I'll actually show you. This is probably the easiest way. So let me pop in here. I'll minimize my presentation again. Now, this is the, actually, let me go to the taskbar first. This is the, actually, let me go to the taskbar first. Okay, so this is the old start menu you come to know and love. I mean, you can make this fairly complicated for an advanced user. But the fact is, novice users have a hard time even after they've cleaned it up like I have here. So I'm going to go into my taskbar properties here. And here you notice we have the cleanup of the notification area. So I can actually set it here, my current items, and I can say whether to hide it when it's inactive or always hide, always show. And what will happen is it'll get this little chevron. Unfortunately, I've clicked on all these, so they're all active right now. But if you don't use something for a while, it'll drop off here, and then you can click on it, and it just expands it, just like a personalized menu. The Start menu has the new Simple Start menu, and I can go in here and I can customize this. You can customize it to have large or small icons. You can say I want 6 items, or I want 10 items. And then there's even an advanced tab. You can go and indicate everything you want to have here. You can animate it as it opens. And a lot of this stuff is still under development too, so don't get too caught up in the visuals. But the idea is now I can turn this on, and I have a nice large area. I actually indicated 10. You can shrink this down so it doesn't take quite as much real estate. And you can even pin things. Like let's say I want Media Player to always be on the top. You see the stuff above the line? This is actually what we call the pinned area. And what it means is you can put it there and it'll stay there. So unlike an MRU, which might disappear, I can actually pin this up there and it'll always show up in that area. And of course, you still have your more programs, which is basically your old programs menu. We're experimenting with some ways to indicate what's new. So if you just installed something, it shows up in yellow right now. I'm not sure if that'll be in for the final version, but that's something we're experimenting with right now. So that is the Start menu. Log on and fast user switching. So a lot of people at home share their computers. Probably not any of us. We probably have multiple computers, and you have one that's set aside for the family that they can totally destroy. And then you got the one that's yours, right? And it's password protected and nobody at home can get into it? Exactly. Because I have a 3-year-old, and you'd be amazed what kind of damage a 3-year-old can do to your computer. I mean, I'm not talking about just Barney desktops here. I mean, they can do some serious damage. So we want people to share their computers at home because that's something they do, and we want it to be a great user experience for them. And we're thinking, well, you can do that right now. We have profiles. Why aren't people using profiles? Well, although 80% of users share their computer at home, almost none of them are using profiles. So they're not getting a personalized user experience. They're not getting their private desktops. They're not getting their private email accounts. They have to kind of manage them within the applications. And you're seeing a lot of this, like IE's identities and multiple email accounts in your mail clients, so that people can actually work from one profile and still have several accounts managed by the application. But we don't want that. We want the applications to be simple, and we want the account management to be at the OS level. We should know about the user who's logging into that machine, and it takes the burden off the applications to do that multiple persona management. So what can we do to improve profiles? Well, why aren't they using them? Well, mostly because they didn't know about it. It's off by default in Windows 98. And so, most people aren't going to find it. But even if they have enabled it, it still takes several minutes to get this up and running because they have to quit all their applications, save all their documents, and then they have to log off, and then they have to log back on, usually with a password. Well, actually, we're requiring a password, which for a 3-year-old is kind of difficult. And then they have to relaunch all the applications they wanted to be running, which is not something I expect my 3-year-old to be able to do. So how are we fixing this? Well, profiles are now on by default. As part of the out-of-box experience, we're asking you, who's going to be using this computer? And you let them know right off the bat. The administrator, the main user, he gets a password by default, but nobody else does. So all their children, they just have one-click access. We have a user-friendly logon screen, which you saw a little of earlier. I'll actually show you working in the product right now. We've got a new control panel that makes it much simpler for people to add users. And then we're enabling fast user switching. And this is the coolest feature in the world because it actually lets you maintain your state, even if you have your computer. So basically, you're allowed to log off without quitting your applications. They keep running. So here's a scenario. I start a 20-minute download. I walk away. And a 20-minute download, it keeps going. My son comes in here. Well, the screensaver kicked in. He comes up to the machine. He wants to play pinball or whatever. And he logs in as himself. My download keeps going. He plays pinball. He can't screw up my download because it's in a whole different profile. And that's the fast user switching feature. And it's actually implemented via... Oh, don't clap yet. I'm going to show you it working. Here I am. I'm going to keep my PowerPoint presentation... Oh, man, I didn't mean to close that. Sorry. PowerPoint presentation running here. And I'll go ahead and relaunch that. Just, nothing up my sleeve. And I'm going to log out. There we go. Okay. So here's my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log into a different account. Now, it lets me totally log off, which quits all my application, or simply switch users. And actually, if you just let the screensaver come on, it would just automatically switch users, which is the same thing as I'm going to click here. Okay. Now you come on to our new user-friendly logon screen. It's not the blue screen. Okay. So this is a listing of all the users of this machine. And you can actually see I've got 2 programs running, and my son actually has 1 program running already. So let's go see what his life is like right now. Running on this application, running on this machine while I've been giving this presentation has been an application that he left running, pinball. And I can sit here and actually play pinball. Let's go ahead and fire it off here. Okay. So now I'm going to log off. Switch users. Now I'm going to enter a password because I actually have a password. And of course, this is Gina. You could actually be doing fingerprint authentication for all I care. And I'm back where I left. All right, so that's fast user switching. Pardon me? Actually, that's a great debate that we're having right now. What to do with the sounds? Because there are a lot of applications, especially kids' applications out there right now. And parents among you know. I mean, Barney will go yuck, yuck, yuck every 30 seconds at idle time, right? This isn't something you want to be bothering you while you're working on your spreadsheet. So it's kind of an internal debate right now whether we should mute all the sounds. What we really want application developers to do is look for these new events we're giving that indicates that your current session has been logged out. The right thing to do at that point is say, I'm logged out. I have no UI. Let me just sort of twiddle my thumbs here and be a good background application and not do anything wrong. And so, yes, they would mute their own sounds. And they would release any contested resources, like the serial port, for example, if they're like a hot sync app or something like that. That's the right thing to do. But yeah, we'll probably mute the sounds just for all those legacy apps that you have to deal with. I'd rather they just not be using the processor cycles at all, but hey, it's not a perfect world. All right. How does it work? Well, this is actually personal terminal server here. Whistler ships with a version of terminal server that's not quite the full terminal server. It's actually a personal one that lets you take over the machine. So you can actually remote administer your machine, but just you can only have one screen on at a time. It's not like the full server. You can't have several accounts running at the same time. But a side effect of this is that we can also use terminal services to manage the other states of the sessions that are running in the background. So we actually use personal terminal server to maintain these session execution states. And then we use profiles for the data separation. So that means that the people shouldn't be doing these classic profile mistakes like opening a file outside of the user's profile and locking it because a separate instance of your application won't necessarily run then. All right, I got some other demos here. Web publishing, CD burning, and device autoplay. All right. So these are quick and dirty demos. So I'm going to take a compact flash card that I pulled out of my camera, okay? And I want to get this on my PC. And I'm going to take it into this little $30 PC MCIA adapter, and I'm going to just pop it in. Okay, and when I do this, assuming my wet fingerprints on it don't short it out, we're going to get this new device show up. And it's actually going to pop up a new dialog that lets me, what it did was actually, when I popped this in, it said, okay, there are images on this thing. Well, what can I do with images? Well, I can view a slideshow of this stuff. Or, I mean, you could actually configure it to have a whole bunch of different handlers. Right now, we've only got a few. You can open the folder so you can just view it, or you can do the slideshow. You could, launch Photoshop. Anybody can register as an autoplay media event handler. But for this time, I'm just going to start the slideshow. And you can see I can just pop right in here in the slideshow. And this is, it just does it automatically. So I can send somebody a CD full of files. I don't have an autorun.inf in it. I just have a CD full of files. It could have been a Kodak photo CD for all I care. You pop it in, it looks and it says, man, there's a lot of photos in here. Let me just launch the slideshow. And you can configure it so it does it every time, or you can decide. It's all up to you. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and quit out of this. And let me just go in here and take a look at these. I'm going to go into my computer and actually take a look at the device itself, and I'll show you how this is configured. You can actually go into the removable drive, and there's a new tab that will show up on the device properties. It's called Autoplay, and it allows you to configure the handlers for each type of device. So here's what you do for pictures, and here's for music files and video and mixed content. So for pictures, I could have potentially a whole bunch of things. Here right now I just have media player for the audio files. But we're encouraging more and more applications developers to register as autoplay handlers. And so you can select AC/DC to be your image handler, or whatever works for you. That's how easy it is to configure. If I actually open this up, let's take a look at some of these. You notice that it's actually nested. It was nested in this weird folder hierarchy that all these cameras do. And that's a pain. But it seemed to find its way through the hierarchy. It knows about these folder hierarchies and knows to look in the right place. So here's actually a new view that we have. This is called our film strip view, and I can go full screen on this. It allows you just I can advance, and you can zoom and crop. It's actually an improved version of what you saw in Millennium Edition. Now let's say I want to take one of these files and I want to publish it to the web. So I can take and say, just click on this task on the left-hand side, publish this file to the web. And now I come into my web publishing wizard. And this is actually only showing a couple of our test sites right now. But you could potentially have a whole bunch of service providers here that would indicate, okay, I want to take this picture and I want to post it up on a Kodak site and order prints. Or I could post it up on audio files. I could post them up on CD Now and order a custom CD with just those files. Or maybe it's a picture of a car and I just want to post it up to eBay and post a for sale sign with that. And it will actually allow you to step through the process of using that service right here in the dialog. So I'm actually going to connect to MSN right now. And I'll say, okay, I want to just publish this to one of my existing sites on MSN. So I click right here and I proceed. And here I've got a couple ones. Let me just stick it up in my photo album here. And it'll actually offer to resize them too. So let's say this was fairly large. I got this from my digital camera, so maybe I want to sample this down to 640 by 480. So it'll copy them up. And then it'll put the link to the website that it creates. And so here I can just click on this. We've actually got a bug in it right now. I have to touch up this, this URL that it puts in here. And take this out. There we go. And it'll just take you up to the website you just created. And this is how easy it is to publish a photo album. And this is just one of the potential .web services that you could offer this way. You could just have a whole bunch of services, and we're not going to be able to anticipate all of them, but you're going to have a nice list of them, and you just select them from that list, and we'll walk you through the process of posting your content to that service. All right, but let's say I wanted to publish it in a different place. Let's say I want to take this and I want to put it on a CD. Well, let's just move this file. I've actually got a CDRW in this drive right now. And I've got a CD I call my photo archives. I'm just going to move it over there. So now if I go to my computer, I'll look at my photo archives here. You can see that this is a CDRW drive. As soon as there we go. And it shows my files that are currently on the CD. So I've already put files on the CD. This is a multi-session CD. Okay? These are the files I've already got up there in the top group. And on the bottom, I've got files that I've added to the CD. And in order to burn, all I do is hit write to CD. Actually, if I eject it, it'll prompt me to see if I want to write this to the CD too. That's how easy it is to publish a CD. In fact, you can just drag stuff over here, and it's going to just divide it into the two groups. If you have something that's going to be replaced, it'll indicate in the top that it's going to be replaced with a little overlay like this is going to go. That's how easy it is to use CDRWs. And we expect CDRWs to be big. I mean, you can already buy these for portable drives for your laptops. We expect them to be shipped with just about every drive. They're also like they're already 20% penetration in new sales. And we expect that to get bigger and bigger. This is what's going to replace the floppy. And it's as easy as a floppy. You just drag files in there, you eject, it burns, you're done. So let's pop back to the slide deck here. So what's beyond Whistler? Well, I really can't talk about much beyond Whistler. The code name is Blackcomb. And we'll be integrating a lot more .NET services, a new schema, a new file system, a new programming model, a lot of the programming model you've already heard about at like PDC and such events, and a new user interface, more of a task-centered interface. Let me show you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. Like I mentioned that we have a new control panel that allows you to configure your user accounts. So I can go in accounts. So I can go in here, and this is my new control panels. And it actually walks you through the process. We call this an inductive UI, where it's based by task. So instead of using specific control panels, which you still can do down here, you can say, I want to do a specific thing. And the focus is the task, not the objects in which you're manipulating on. So I can actually come back here. And let's say I wanted to actually adjust my user accounts. I could go list my user accounts. And here are all the people who are using my machine. I can go and change my son's account type to be a limited account type so that he can't install any programs or something like that. And it's that easy. It's all very task focused. And this tests much better in usability. You're going to see a lot more of this in the Blackcomb time frame because it just tests better. And so we're actually going to be encouraging a lot of this within applications as well. So, what do I want you to do? I want you to go out there and sell Windows 2000. I mean, seriously. It is going to make a much better transition for all of our customers if we have a better adoption of Windows 2000. People writing for the NT code base already are just going to have a trivial time to migrate over to Whistler. We need to get the developers, the hardware and software developers, thinking Windows 2000s. We need to get our major enterprise accounts thinking about Windows 2000. We need a demand there for the NT code base so that we have the application and device compatibility ready to go by the time we ship this product. So leave it to us to work on the consumer aspects of things. I mean, The consumer target is definitely going to be there for Whistler. We're going to have lots of consumer-specific features. The Whistler launch itself, we've actually got more money set aside for the Whistler launch than we had for Windows 95. It's going to be a big event. We're going to see a lot of money thrown into marketing, and it's focused on end users, and that takes a lot of cash in the marketing department. We're going to make a big deal of this, but it's all going to be for nothing if you don't have the application and the device support, and we don't have a demand for the NT code base. That reliability, that stability, that power, we need a demand for that. If you have any questions about specific features, you can go to the Windows Client website. If you need permissions to get to that, there's actually an alias called Windows Client Access Permissions or something like that. Or you can send feedback to the WinUI alias. And that's not just my team. That's actually people throughout Microsoft who are dealing with these higher level user interface design discussions. And maybe I'll help you work through this stuff. So now I'm going to open it up to Q&A. If you have a question, please step up to the mic. And we'll just work through the mics. Go ahead.
With the ability to log in multiple users and using the terminal services, how many multiple client logons are you allowed in personal?
Right now, it's not limited. You can